Right, joining me now is my dear friend Katie Pavlich, Fox News contributor, townhall.com editor, and Paul Mauro, retired New York Police Department inspector, also a Fox News contributor. You're both great to come on. Paul Mauro, I've been watching you as much as I possibly can. Katie, thank you for doing this. It's all very difficult to talk about this story, I understand. Paul, can I begin with you? There's a couple things that I just don't understand. They may not be very important, but sequentially, I'm trying to figure this out. And then there's some flap at the house where they live about whether the car is there and dogs are sniffing it that we were just reporting. Anyway, this kid, okay, this crazy kid, this awful kid, he does the bad deed. He drops the rifle, he runs, he gets in a car, and he drives home. And when he's home, he tells his father, who is a cop or a deputy cop, or his father sees his picture and realizing it's his own son. And then the father does what? The father calls a minister, a family friend minister, and the minister tells the cops, and then the father comes back and tells the cops. What's the sequence here? Because I think there are legal implications to this. And I don't know whether the whole lot of them should be responsible.
So he flees the scene. We've seen the video of him getting off the roof. He leaves the campus on foot. After that, it goes kind of dark. We've seen the video of him running down the street in the neighborhood. This all seems to have been his MO. He likely figured there'd be fewer cameras in the neighborhood outside the campus. So if he did park, that's where he likely parked. But there's also some reporting that the car was left on campus. So it's a little unclear how he got from this area in Salt Lake City, 3.5 hours south of here, to where he originally lives. There's also some talk that he might have taken a bus. There's a shuttle service apparently that runs back and forth. Either way, he gets back there, he's hiding out. The father ultimately recognizes that it is his son from the images that are put out, the better images that were put out last night by the task force. Fittingly, by the end of 9/11, the father has called a retired U.S. Marshal. This town down south, St. George, has a lot of retirees. It's kind of a retirement community. He knew this guy. He calls that guy and tells him, my son is the perpetrator. Unclear if the son had admitted it or not, but apparently what was going on is that the family was concerned that if they didn't turn him in, somebody else was going to, and there was a fear that they could be, as the police call it, a kinetic entry. That is to say, the cops come booming the doors, taking him in a rougher way, and maybe something goes sideways, the kid could get hurt or worse. So they wanted to prevent that. Family wanted to make sure that this was done orderly. They knew that the gig was up and that he was going to get arrested. They then went with either this second person, the retiree, or a minister. And a minister in Latter-day Saints is different from ministers that you and I think about. It's a much more immediate relationship. Some sort of crew like this went to the sheriff's office, and that's why he was in the custody of the Washington County Sheriff's Office. That's a jail. They run the jails. They went right to the jail, gave him up to the Washington County Sheriff. There must have been some connection there. Somebody knew somebody. They took him in. The sheriff notifies the task force, and you know the rest.
Well, one other thing, Katie, please jump in. I'm going to come to you on another matter, Katie, but if you have any sequential info, please feel free to jump in. But let me just ask Paul one more thing. There's a roommate.
Yeah, of course.
There's a roommate, Paul. All right. And there was some communications over this Discord, internet, social media system, whatever it is, for games. I don't know what it is. But the roommate knew about it, or seems to know about it. I think it was your reporting on this. And I don't know what that means, but it was you that put this in my head, I guess, this morning in your reporting. The roommate could be culpable. If we go back to the Boston bombers, their roommates were culpable. Right. They could be accessories to the crime. I'm just trying to round up all the awful people that were party to this awful, heinous deed, Paul Mauro. So what's this, just a little bit of about the roommate and what's his role or her role or whoever it is?
Here's what we know now. When the police entered the location, this is after the perp was in custody, They talk to the roommate. The roommate voluntarily opens his computer and lets them see messages that the two exchanged in Discord. From the context of the reporting and from the press conference, it sounds very much like the conversation that we all have heard about happened after the fact. Now that matters, because if he was involved before the fact, you have a conspirator. And that, using the internet, you now have federal jurisdiction, and this could be a very different kind of prosecution. As of now, all I can be prepared to say is that it looks like after the fact, the perpetrator texted with this roommate and said, you got to help me get this gun, you got to help me with my clothes, words to that effect. The reason that matters is exactly what you just said. If the roommate lies to the federal government in the course of the investigation, he's looking at a 5-year hit. That's what happened in the Boston Marathon thing. If he covered up or destroyed evidence, he's looking at a bigger hit. That's the other guy that was arrested after the fact in the Boston Marathon thing. So believe me, the feds are looking at this, because right now, this is almost certainly, I believe, going to be a state murder death penalty case. But it could go in a different direction if these other pieces fall in line.
All right, thank you for all that. Katie Pavlich, thank you for helping us out. You know, I know you knew Charlie Kirk pretty well. I didn't know him. I knew of him. I followed his career. He was the most unusual person, and all I've tried to do last night and this evening is, you know, here's a guy of faith, here's a guy of civility, here's a guy of free speech, he's a guy of economics, he's a guy touting traditional values, Judeo-Christian values. He was a phenomenal conservative leader, Katie. He will be sorely missed. That goes without saying. But Katie Pavlich, you are also an important conservative leader. I want to say that, and what you've done. Tell me what you're thinking now. It's like, what happens next? What happens next in the conservative movement, among young people, among Gen Zers, among all of us for that matter, Katie? Tell me how you see it, please.
Well, of course, nobody can replace Charlie Kirk. All the things that you listed off are many of even more amazing things about who he was as a person, in his advocacy, in his love for the country, love for his faith, love for his family. And what I love is that, you know, Charlie's life was all online, and you can, you know, see how he lived his life. You can see the way he was with his family, and people who don't know him can get to know him in those ways because he was so transparent with that. So I would have people, if you don't know him, go get to know him that way. But in terms of where things go now, with the conservative movement, with the campus movement, I've been hearing from parents of kids who are in college who saw this horrific assassination online because kids are online. I've heard from friends and family about their friends and what they're telling their kids who were admirers of Charlie Kirk. And they are saddened, but they are furious. And they are ready to continue to carry on his work. They may be afraid for obvious reasons, but they are putting that fear aside, and they are willing to continue to go out, speak about the truth, and to make sure that this vitriolic, anti-American, toxic, venomous ideology that is trying to tear down our country, that murdered one of the most prominent political activists of our time over free speech, which is in our Constitution a bedrock of Western civilization. They're not going to let them win. And so, you know, they are ready to continue their own fight, and they will work to make sure that they are victorious.
You know, Katie, just there are almost no original thoughts in all this, but those people who have the nerve, audacity, whatever, awful people, I won't say who praise this action, but refuse to condemn it. Anyway, the left, the political assassins on the left have made a very big mistake here, Katie Pavlich. That's what I think. And to your point, yes, there's a certain amount of anger, but I think this will intensify, and when the dust clears, I won't say energize, but intensify the followers of Charlie Kirk and probably add to the circle of followers of Charlie Kirk people who want to defend the conservative traditional values you just described. I think that this is an enormous mistake by these political assassins on the left. That's what I think.
I also think it's an enormous mistake. And they tried to send a message with the silencing of Charlie Kirk with this assassination attempt, or this assassination and attempt to silence him forever. But in terms of the future and the consequences of what they have done is to be foreseen. But there are millions of people in America and all over the world who saw what happened and were horrified. I mean, this is to know and to see what happened on video and then to have the celebration of it by certain people only reinforces that what Charlie was doing was good and that what he was doing was kind and normal, that he was a uniter, not a divider. There's nothing more unifying than setting up a tent on a college campus with 5,000 people outside and saying, if you disagree with me, come to the front of the line. Let's have a conversation. Here's a microphone. Ask me whatever you want. There's nothing more peaceful and calm and American than that. And I think people want to be part of that kind of culture, not part of this assassination culture of death, that if you disagree with me, words are violence, and therefore you deserve to die. That, I think, will be rejected. This culture of death and cancellation and attack will be rejected. And this is not the first time we've seen this. I mean, they tried to kill President Trump twice. We saw the murder of two people in the streets of Washington, D.C. this summer as a result of not agreeing with the left and their stances on foreign policy. We saw the gunning down of Catholic kids in their church because they're not aligned with leftist ideology. And today, the governor of Utah confirmed that Charlie Kirk was murdered for engaging in free speech and his political ideology. And that cannot stand. That cannot be excused. And they have to seek the death penalty and carry it out, because the message can't be, if you disagree with someone and kill them, you will be rewarded, which is what the left has been doing. It has to be punished.
Thank you.
Punished harshly.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Katie. Paul Mauro, as a longtime cop, I mean, the culture of life must triumph over the culture of death. It must. And the punishments must be meted out accordingly, Paul. I'm going to give you the last word on that one.
Well, let me put my lawyer hat on. There's a reason the First Amendment is first. It's the founding principle of our nation, and it differentiates us from even other Western nations. Consequently, in our society, the way to combat speech is with more speech. Silencing it never works. It never has. It's not going to this time. And I would just enlarge the sort of impact of this, not only agreeing with what both of you have said, but the reason they went for Charlie is because he was effective. And he was effective with something that the left believes is theirs, which is the youth. And let's remember something. People that talked about Charlie as a presidential candidate, he's only 31. He had a lot of time left. And when you look to see who's going to carry on Trumpism after Trump, Charlie would have all of those young voters coming of age, out of high school, out of college, politically engaged. They feared a Charlie Kirk future.
Yes, great point. Terrific point. Katie Pavlich, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Paul Mauro, thank you very much. We appreciate it very much.